Hello and welcome back to Task and Purpose. I'm your regular old infantryman Chris Cappy. In this video, I want to analyze if we're witnessing and living through a paradigm shift in warfare. Does the rise of low-cost, unmanned TB2 aerial drones that can take out a tank without risking your life represent a change as revolutionary as when we went from swords to guns?
Or is the actual truth that this drone is an overhyped piece of equipment that's being touted for propaganda purposes?
Don't get me wrong, I love a good piece of military propaganda. I eat that up for breakfast. But only an estimated 20 to 50 of these were deployed to Ukraine at any point. So why is a handful of weapons getting so much attention? How long have these been in the field? Why haven't most of us heard about this thing until now? We're going to examine the TB2 drone specifications, its weapons, and its enormous outsized effects on the battlefield today. Some say this drone is unlike anything seen since the end of World War II. But what are some of the main technologies that have shifted our military weapons and strategies since then? Kevlar ballistic body armor, night vision, thermal vision, as well as auto, fire control, precision guided munitions. Now what happens when you combine and weave all of these new technologies together?
You get the capabilities of the Bayraktar TB2 drone. But where did this thing come from? The whole original genesis for the idea behind this vehicle was actually brought on by a US ban on exports of armed unmanned vehicles to Turkey, because at the time the US was worried that Turkey was going to use their own drones against their allied forces in the region. So instead of giving up on having military drones, Turkey decided to invest in creating their own.
So it was invented around the same time that Russia first annexed Crimea. The Bayraktar was developed and made insanely fast, so fast that many have been unable to counter it. It's like when the sword was first invented and there was no shield.
On the other hand, there is credible reports and video evidence from the Russian Ministry of Defense showing that they've been able to shoot down some drones using surface-to-air missiles that were originally designed to take out jets.
The TB1 was first operational relatively recently in 2011. Design for TB2 then began in 2012, and it made its maiden voyage flight, maiden soaring, in 2014. In 2021, the TB2 completed 400,000 operational flight hours, proving that it was a reliable drone. This armed drone is powered by a single Rotax 912 engine, which develops 105 horsepower, can travel with a maximum speed of around 220 kilometers or 100 miles per hour. Its maximum range is 6,000 kilometers. It can reach an altitude of up to 8.2 kilometers high. The drone is 6.5 meters long and about 900 pounds or 420 kilograms, which is about half the weight of its US counterpart, the Reaper drone. It can carry 4 laser-guided munitions. This drone has what's called a loitering time of about 24 hours. Don't make me say it, fine. I'll use the military buzzword. This thing is a force multiplier. To understand how revolutionary this thing is, we need to think about the economics of scale. It's not so much that this drone fires missiles that didn't exist before, or that it uses optics that didn't exist. No, the US had been using similar technology since the start of the Iraq War. The difference here is how much cheaper it is.
The Bayraktar costs around $5 million per unit, and in some cases it costs as little as $2 million.
Either way, this is much cheaper. The US uses military drones that cost between 25 and 250 million. This attack drone can carry a maximum payload of 65 kilograms. It can carry the 4 MAM-C or the MAM-L missiles. These missiles were specifically designed for UAVs and light attack aircraft with low payload capacity. These missiles have laser guidance and can engage stationary or moving targets. The MAM-C has a high explosive warhead, while the MAM-L has a thermobaric warhead. The cope cage armor above Russian tanks is apparently good for one thing, or at least it's designed for one use. According to Thomas Nudik at the War Zone, those cages are meant to stop those missiles that are fired by the drones, because we had RPG cages like that on our strikers in Iraq, and they were meant for stopping smaller munitions like what these drones fire.
So the real question here is, how amazing is this drone's performance in Ukraine versus is it just Russian incompetence?
Mario Gilli, senior researcher in the military technology and international security at ETH Zurich, said, quote, "The Ukraine could strike some Russian ground forces with TB2 suggests either the Russian forces are advancing without air defense, which is very well possible, in light of the logistics and organization problems Russia has encountered so far, or the Ukrainian forces acquired also advanced electronic warfare systems. Whether they will have the systemic effect on the outcome of the war, it's hard to say, but I tend to be skeptical."
That quote is really interesting to me because we see the experts are torn here. They're not sure just how effective this aircraft is. You get some people saying the tank is obsolete because of drones, and you have other people saying that, well, we've always claimed that the tank is obsolete ever since it was invented, and it's still here. But when people say the tank is obsolete, I don't think they really mean that it's completely useless. What they're saying is that the way that the tank has been used up until today is no longer a viable option. The days of being able to casually and briskly advance across the battlefield in your tracked vehicle, those days are over. From now on, you're going to need energy weapon protection, and we'll go over what that is in a bit.
Only about 300 of them have been created, only about 50 were sent to the Ukraine war. Aaron Stein of the Foreign Policy Research Institute had some good reasoning as to why they're so visible in the media right now. He said, quote, "Those TB2 strikes are in comparison to ground combat relatively small in number, but important for Ukrainian morale, precisely because it shows Russia does not control the skies. It can be remotely controlled, or it can go into autonomous flight mode so that the battlefield can be surveilled from above. These aircraft are monitored from ground control stations. The idea that a lightweight, cheap drone could evade modern surface-to-air missiles and our modern electronic warfare systems is kind of wild. Even when it's shot down, the military only loses equipment."
When you invent a weapon system that the US doesn't want you to create, you're going to have a bit of controversy and scandal. The Bayraktar company
has moved to producing all components in Turkey. This was a bit of an entanglement with the UK about a bomb rack, and when The Guardian called them out on it, Turkey denied everything. The UK then published 6 years of reports that showed that they were exporting bomb racks to Turkey. According to the British newspaper The Guardian, arming the drone with lethal munitions would never have even been possible without the help of UK Hornet micro-munition bomb rack that was created by the EDO MBM Technology Limited. This bomb rack was provided to Turkey in 2015, and one of their variants was then integrated with it. Chief Technical Officer Salute Bayraktar denied that it came from the United Kingdom. Obviously, he's going to say that though. He said the following on Twitter: "We're not buying it from you. We never did. It not only doesn't work under any circumstances, but is also very expensive. We have designed and manufactured a more advanced and cost-effective one ourselves. We're in a transition phase with warfare doctrine because we're learning that the tactics and strategies that have worked in World War II and since then no longer hold up today and might be catastrophic if we use them in the future. Developing countermeasures to the TB2 are still in the works, which is why the US is trying to create laser guns and laser-mounted weapon stations on vehicles to automatically find and destroy the drones."
Last year, when I went to Washington, D.C., I spoke to the actual engineers at Raytheon who are creating the energy weapons designed to take down these drones. They told me if you shoot a laser for 5 seconds at the drone, it'll bring it down, and each battery pack has about 100 seconds of energy fire, at which point recharging takes about half an hour.
One of the most valuable aspects of the TB2 drone is that it can be used in a recon role thanks to its thermal imaging ability, which can relay targeting information to artillery targets. The real magic of this system is when it's used in combined operations capacities like that. We're learning that combining systems is more effective than letting them operate on their own. This is why a new concept is coming into view. It's something that I learned when I was at the AUSA conference in Washington, D.C. last year, where all of the defense contractors bring out their new weapons and explain the new tactics. The new concept that I kept hearing about at every place and every company, from Raytheon to General Dynamics, they're all talking about developing the battlefield. So the next war will look a lot like unmanned vehicles roaming the battlefield looking for targets and sending that surveillance information back to manned platforms with weapons. It's why I bring up force multiplication. Why send out a bunch of tanks with people that are vulnerable when you can send out unmanned vehicles first, then you can sacrifice those with little cost. Troops in the future will no longer do recon roles because they'll be too vulnerable to weapon systems like the TB2 drone. Mario Gill said, quote, "Drones like the TB2 are vulnerable to anti-air defense systems. To be effective, they need to be employed in a savvy way, in coordination with other electronic warfare systems that blind enemy radars, and through appropriate tactics. Apparently there are better options, like the Chinese-made Wing Loon 2, which has twice the range and twice the payload. It can fly 50% higher and twice as as fast as the TB2. These kind of drones can hunt and kill other drones too. There's too much drone-on-drone violence. We need to account for the idea that Chinese and Russian equipment might not be as good as they claim though. So that's all we have on the TB2 drone. Did I miss anything in my analysis? Do you agree with what I have to say? Do you have experience with these systems? Let me know in the comments section. I'm your average infantryman, Chris Cappy. You're watching Task and Purpose. Check out this playlist if you want to learn more.